Hey, Good Success community, Josh Culler here, host of the Good Success podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. But before we get into this awesome episode of the Good Success podcast, we'd like to take a quick minute and thank our sponsors. And first is Sharper Business Solutions and our good friend Gary Harper. And listen, your business is a personal endeavor that you have poured your blood, sweat, and tears into. Sharper Business Solutions is a full service solution to help you scale your dream. Sharper Business Solutions implements the Sharper process and other key systems, giving you the confidence and freedom to keep growing and scaling as a company. The Sharper team wants to come alongside you and provide the resources needed for long-term growth and success. Schedule your free consultation today at sharperprocess.com. And let me tell you, these guys are amazing. A lot of our mastermind members have hired Gary and the Sharper team to come and implement EOS and processes and systems into their business, and their scaling is very, very much apparent, and they've grown exponentially. So make sure you guys check them out one more time. That's sharperprocess.com. And we'd like to say a quick thank you to Veterans Path Up and our good friend Ken Lacey. And Veterans Path Up's mission is to provide affordable, stable housing to veterans and veteran families through the use of shared living, single-family residences, and ultimately a path to home ownership. Their emphasis is to provide housing for homeless, working, and disabled veterans, many of whom do not qualify for long-term support from any government agency. Veterans Path Up ascribes to the philosophy of helping those with a hand up as opposed to a hand out. Veterans Path Up provides a critical link to the veteran by bridging the gap to other supportive veteran services. This is accomplished through education and awareness to available support, with the ultimate goal of getting the veteran and family on a path to self-sufficiency. Through the use of private and philanthropic funding, Veterans Path Up acquires, rehabs, and places veterans into the appropriate housing for where they are with respect to their current financial picture. Improving neighborhood housing and showing veterans a path up strengthens the community and strengthens the country while helping those who have protected our freedom. You can visit veteranspathup.org to make a donation or find out how you can help impact our veterans even further. So without further ado, let's take a quick sneak peek of what you'll hear on this episode of the Good Success podcast.
So you get these people that are chasing the money. They go to a seller, and the sellers are, a lot of them are vulnerable because they trust people. So they're getting talked by these wholesalers thinking they're going to buy their house. So now they're selling stuff, they're packing up. I bought a house from someone where the wholesaler fell through. They had lost $1,500 in a security deposit because they expected to sell their house and they were going to go rent. Well, the sale fell apart. They didn't go rent, so they lost the security deposit. So when I built the business, it was built on, hey, I'm going to do it with integrity. So when I was making my first offers, if I didn't have the money to close on the house, I told them what my options were. I'm like, look, I can't pay that, but I know other people that can pay it because they do the work on their own, whatever. Let me show them. I'll get you the price you want, and I'll throw on a little bit so I can get paid.
Welcome back to the Good Success podcast. I am your host, Josh Culler. Got Tom Olson, president of Good Success, sitting right next to me in his warm, is that cotton?
It's cold in here, Josh.
Is it cold in here?
It's cold in here.
You were just talking about how stifling it was.
Can we turn the heat on in here?
Frosty in here.
Frosty? Yeah, it'll warm up. Just trust me. This is like a sweat box in here once you get people talking and stuff like that. But we have Adrien Chabot from Northwest Indiana, in our neck of the woods. It took you like, what, 15 minutes to get here or something like that?
Not even.
All the way from Highland, Indiana.
Exactly. So, Adrien, it's awesome to have you on the show today, man. Thanks for coming into the studio, too.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Awesome stuff. So, Adrien's partner, Justin, if you guys didn't know, Justin Smits was actually on episode 109 of the Good Success podcast. We talked about tax sales, I believe. I don't remember everything that we talked about, but great episode. So go back and listen to that if you haven't already. So episode 109 of the Good Success podcast. So Adrien is partners with Justin at Region Homebuyers, and then founder of Invest NWI, which you have your shirt on, which is a meetup group that Olson Group's a part of. At some point I'll be there. I just told you that. I'm like, man, Mondays are like good, but
Josh, you can
I'm
have
like, I need to
excuses
just
or
go.
results. You can't have both.
I just need to go.
Excuses or
I'm gonna give
results. You can't have both.
I'm gonna give results.
His why's not big enough.
That is, that just threw down on the podcast, man.
That can be your quote.
Yeah, exactly. There's our quote. But anyway,
sir.
So we'll talk about that when we come back around to Adrien introducing himself. One thing that I thought was pretty cool that you posted on Facebook was about the donating the perishable foods or non-perishable foods for the Caring Hands Soup Kitchen in Hammond that you had your meetup group donate. So maybe have you talk a little bit about that, because we're all about that and giving back and everything to your community. So great stuff. But we'll come back around to him in just a second. And if you guys have not already, make sure you have subscribed to the Good Success Podcast. We're on all the podcast platforms. Just go search for us and you'll find us there. If you would be so kind as to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, 5 stars would be amazing. We would love to hear your feedback on these episodes. And then the Good Success Mastermind coming up February 4 through 8. We are at a full week now, split into 2 groups. We just had our mastermind call this morning for December, and that went extremely well.
It was amazing. Like there wasn't a lot of people on this call because it was our first early morning call.
Right.
Which they asked for it, and they begged us for early morning, so we're like, let's do it. But there was some really good stuff this morning. There were people got some really good help. One guy's kind of shutting down his business and kind of wanting to ramp up on rentals, and another guy was just trying to figure out how to systemize things. One guy's trying to hire a personal assistant and getting advice from that. And it was just a really good phone call this morning. So you guys that are on the mastermind, you guys should be there. But if you guys don't, I love those little check-ins, just holding people accountable every month.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys want to learn more about the group that we put together, go to goodsuccess.com/mastermind. And we have an application there that you will want to fill out, and then you'll jump on a phone call with either myself or Tom, and then we'll go from there. Our next event is February 4 through 8 in Dallas, Texas at Quest Trust Company's office down there. Quincy Long and the whole Quest team is being kind enough to host us there, so that's going to be a fun event. Going to have a middle day, and that's going to be a lot of keynotes, panels, and then the ever-anticipated weigh-in of Mo Matthews and Jeremiah
Good Success
Rose.
weigh-in, which we'll have followed by the Good Success dance-off, right?
The dance-off, yeah. That's probably a good name for it. We'll title it that event. So if you guys haven't heard of us talking of these two guys, we had Jeremiah Rose on a podcast a couple of episodes ago with Matt Durand. And these two guys are like taking their health seriously, and they've been overweight. They've had goals in the past at our mastermind, our quarterly goals, to lose weight, and they just hadn't done it. And so finally they just said, we're going to do it.
And this was something that it came out of last mastermind, but it wasn't part of the actual meeting itself.
Right.
I think it was just like sometimes you go back, and Adrien, you guys are a part of mastermind. You go back to your room and you start thinking about it, and you're like, oh crap, like I need to. And it was kind of funny because I think the previous quarter, Jeremiah had stated, I'm going to lose 40 pounds this next quarter. And then we reminded him of this at the actual event, and he was like, I said that?
Yeah.
And really, like, nothing happened of it until the very last day. And then all of a sudden we hear him and Mo getting into it, on the side, the last day after the whole event was over, and they're like, we're going to do this. So we actually put it on video and kind of like put the challenge on video for them. But and Jeremiah has been a real encouragement to everybody. If you guys aren't following him on Facebook, every day he posts and he checks in and says, this is why I'm doing it today. And that's kind of what keeps us going every single time, is to have and our purpose is different every day. Sometimes I say we have a big life purpose, and it's great, but we ought to kind of like every day we ought to wake up with that purpose. This is why I'm going to do what I'm going to do today. Yep. And Jeremiah's been a really good example of that. I'm really proud of him for that. And Mo, the guys are both kicking butt and losing a lot of weight, and we're really excited to have some fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on that middle day, we're also giving out the Good Success Awards. Yep. The yearly Good Success Award, which encompasses all 4 of our core values, but then also coming back to the Charity Award. Or no, Growth Award is this time. So the Growth Award, which we're very excited about. So one more time, goodsuccess.com/mastermind is where you can learn more about that and fill out the application there. And then the Community Go-Giver event is coming up June 26, 27, 28. And I believe we have somebody here that might be speaking.
We had somebody here yesterday that's speaking as well too. So that's awesome. So Adrien, is it going to be you, Adrien? Or is it going to be Justin? Both you guys together? I kind of have Justin and Adrien on my schedule. So
yeah, we'll figure that out.
Are you guys going to arm wrestle over it? So and honestly, the reason why I've asked them to speak, because honestly, these guys are amazing. These guys are amazing wholesalers. They're great at acquisitions. They do really good at kind of you guys aren't really fix and flip. You guys kind of wholesale. You guys will fix up some things to a certain degree.
Do a little bit of everything.
But they're really good at that. They could speak on a lot of different things, but for me, what best fit our group and the Community Go Giver was their meetup group. They do, to me, like I've seen you be really good at all these things, and you could speak on any of those things. But the thing that I think you guys go over the top on, and you guys have done I'm going to probably follow in your footsteps and kind of like pattern some of what we want to do next year as a Christian businessmen's breakfast. Based off of kind of some of the things that you've done, because I think you guys have done a really good job with that, and I think that really fits a Community Go-Giver event and how having a meetup group can positively impact your community and how it's going to help the community, yes, and then it's going to come back and help you as well. So I'm really excited about having Adrien and Justin speak about that, because they're here in the local group and they can maybe teach other people how to do that in their own local community.
Absolutely. And these guys are absolutely established in the community as well. I see region home buyers everywhere that I go. So definitely.
And they've only been doing it for what, 18 months now? A year?
We finishing 3 years actually.
Oh, is it really
the group?
Yeah,
the group 2 years. Yeah, 2 years. Yep.
That's awesome.
Although the first 6 months were pretty rough.
Yeah.
So
that's how it goes though, right?
It is. Yeah. I mean, the momentum of the group probably took off right when we hit a year.
Sure. That's awesome. And we're going to have him talk about that in just a second. But the Community Go-Giver event is where Justin and Adrien are going to be speaking. So if you guys want to learn more about it, go to communitygogiver.com. Early bird price tickets are on sale right now, so save a couple $100. We had Josh Belkin here yesterday in the studio. He'll be on a podcast episode. You guys would already have listened to it. But he's going to be speaking at the Community Go-Giver event. We had Jim Ingersoll on the podcast, and he's going to be speaking at the Community Go-Giver event. And several other people that actually spoke last year or this past year and will be returning, and then some new faces. So we're excited about that. Far more details to come, so be on the lookout for that. But you can get your early bird tickets right now at communitygogiver.com. So make sure you guys take advantage of that, and we will see you there. So without further ado, let's get into the podcast interview. Adrien, it's awesome to have you again in the studio. Appreciate you driving here and being willing to sit down with us and share some things. So for the people who don't know who you are, introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing that.
Cool. So I started wholesaling kind of part-time back in 2015 in the fall. Prior to that, I sold insurance door-to-door. And I met someone who had a large wholesaling company here in the area at a networking event, and did insurance for their company, and they kind of introduced me to wholesaling. And I'm the type of guy that does a lot of research before makes a decision. Sure. So I was already on Bigger Pockets. I had a couple of rentals at the time. And when you read about wholesaling on Bigger Pockets, you get all the wholesalers that are trying to support it and justify it, and then everybody else that's like, oh, it's illegal brokering, you rip people off, blah, blah, blah. Now, with all the door-to-door sales I had, I saw the value in wholesaling. But I'm like, there has to be a way to do it the correct way, where you're being honest, helping people solve their problems, and not ripping people off. So I kind of just did it part-time. I did 3 deals in 2 short months. I sold you guys 2 of those first 3.
Awesome.
And I made like $22,000. And I'm like, this is fun.
This is cool, huh?
So I told my wife over Christmas that going into 2016, I was going full-time. So cold turkey, no more insurance, and I jumped straight into it.
Wow.
My goal 2016 was to do 38 houses. I needed a minimum of 1 house a month to cover what I was walking away from. I had no clue how I was going to get to 38 houses, but I knew if I put myself around people smarter than me, worked my backside off, and keep learning, I'd eventually get it. First couple of months were rough, but it went well. Met up with Justin in the summer. We ended up partnering, joined a mastermind, and added systems and processes, and about to add 2 more people to our team to bring us to 6.
Yep. I saw your Facebook post about hiring, and so I'm like, man, their team's growing. So awesome stuff. So let's talk about Invest NWI. We were just talking before we started the podcast interview about the distance it's gone in the short period of time that you've actually had this running. So talk a little bit about how you've been able to build the size of the community that you have. I believe that you said you had just over 100 at one of your events. That was the biggest group that you had, which for Northwest Indiana, just the region here, that's a pretty good size. So I believe you guys, if I'm not mistaken, might be one of the biggest meetups in the area.
South of Chicago, I think.
Right, yeah. So that's awesome stuff. So kind of explain how you're able to build that large of a community with investors, fellow investors that are actually doing deals, and then talk about Invest NWI, what people could expect if they are local here.
Sure. So I started the group for a couple of reasons. One, we were at a mastermind, and they said start a group. I was in a similar group here in the area that I'm still part of and go to occasionally. And when I was getting started, that group added a lot of value to me. The group was run very, very well at that time. And I met a lot of cash buyers. I actually, we were talking about losing weight earlier. I gained a ton of weight in my first year doing this because I was meeting people all the time at Dunkin' Donuts for coffee and donuts and picking their brain on how they're making buying decisions. So the group added a ton of value. So I saw the value in the group. Over time, the group kind of went downhill. They brought in a lot of speakers that were always trying to sell their junk. So between wanting a group that actually provided some value, having more control over the speakers, and then honestly, part of it was just the self-promotion, I guess, because by being in front of our buyers and educating them is going to help our wholesaling business. Mm-hmm. So that's why we started the group. I think the reason why it grew as fast as it did and why it's one of the better groups in the area is because we provide a ton of value for very little cost.
Sure.
The speakers that come in are, for the most part, are local people that are just like everybody else in the group. I'm not bringing in speakers that have been national speakers and they know how to talk in front of big audiences. These are mom and pop investors that are doing, a handful of deals a year to, guys that are doing 50, 60 deals a year.
Yeah. So they may not be like polished speakers, but they're actually doing deals and they're there to bring value.
So like this last meeting, we did what I call success stories. So we had 4 people talk, 8 to 10 minutes, and we set up like a TV show where, the fake TV shows where they talk about, hey, I'm going to buy it at $100,000. We're going to put $10,000 into it, sell it at $200,000, and we're going to make $90,000. And they make it sound really, really appealing. And then reality hits, and it's never like that. So, one of the people talked about how they were buying a house in Maryville, and they were buying it for $50,000. They expected to put $30,000 into it, sell it for $130,000, and make a good profit. Well, they did all the work themselves. It was a lot more work than they expected. They ended up putting $75,000 into it. They walked away with $9,000. Now, would that ever be on a TV show? No, because nobody wants to see someone make $9,000. But for someone doing their first flip, that's probably more realistic than what they see on TV. Sure. So the feedback that we get from the people, they like the authenticity of the speakers. They like how it's more real. We provide, we got Think Realty, affiliate program for them. We give them a swag bag. We give them food. We really cater to the group. Mm-hmm. We record all the videos so they have access to 2 years of videos now. If someone just signs up now, they can go back into our library and watch all of the previous videos. Sure. So the biggest reason is just the value. It's all about value.
Sure. And so you mentioned that you have that subscription and people could go back and watch all those videos. So what does the price points look at? If somebody were to just walk in off the street, walk into the meetup group, is there any kind of vetting process or anybody could be a part of it? And what pricing we're looking at?
So for someone that's coming to one of our meetings, which is the third Monday of every month, first time there, it's free. Second time, if they're going to come month to month, they pay $15. And again, we're getting pizza, Jimmy John's. Half of that $15 goes to food. The other half goes to the venue. So a membership for an individual is $120 for the year, and then for a couple would be $160. And again, that gets them free access to all the meetings. Sure. It gets them the swag bag. It gets them the affiliate program and the access to the website.
Well, I think even bigger than that, it gets them access to the network that you guys have, the community that you've built. That's pretty loyal community for you, and that's worth $120, I believe. So,
one of the cool things that we did at this meeting is we had everybody stand up that did a deal with someone in the group. Mm-hmm. And we had about 80 people that were at this month's meeting, and probably 20 people stood up.
That's awesome.
And those were people that bought houses from people in the group, sold houses, a lot of private lending, transactional funding, agents that got listings, contractors that got work. So, it's one of those things. Your network is huge.
Yeah, sure. Talk about. All right. So let's talk about the non-perishable food drive that you had for the Invest NWI. I thought that was pretty interesting. So you had food donated for the Caring Hands Soup Kitchen in Hammond. So maybe talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah, cool. And one of our core values is stewardship and giving back. part of the group is giving back our time and knowledge and experience. On the region home buyer side, we did a promotion, and this is how we lost all the weight that we lost, but we did a 90-day goal period with all of our employees. So everyone had personal goals, and if they hit that personal goal, we made a donation to a charity they picked in their name. So that's just one of our core values. So we did this last year for the last meeting of the year, and it went well, so we did it again. But there was no charge for this meeting. Everybody got to come in for free, and the only trade-off was we asked them to bring a bag of non-perishable goods. Last year we collected about 300 items. Our goal this year was to collect 1,000 items, and between what people brought in actual items and gift cards, we were able to do that. But the whole idea is, as investors, whether they did one flip or 50 flips or had a rental or got a few listings, everybody in that room is probably doing better off than a lot of people that are going to intermission and carrying hands. To go buy a bag of groceries and donate to someone that's not as fortunate is no big deal for most of the people in that group. Sure. So I was very pleased this year at the amount that was donated compared to last year.
Yeah, that's awesome. Love hearing that. That's fantastic. So let's talk about wholesaling. So you mentioned that your gateway into real estate was wholesaling. So what are some tips that you can give us? I mean, obviously you hang around a lot of wholesalers. I'm sure there's plenty there in your meetup group there. What are some things that you see people that should be doing more with wholesaling, or not doing some things, and just tips with wholesaling?
I'll give two tips. Probably the first one is just be honest. Wholesaling is one of those things that gurus teach because it sells. It's easy. I don't have money. I can show you how to make $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 in real estate without money. Sure. So people with no money are like, hey, I want a bunch of money. Absolutely. And they make it sound really, really easy. Well, it's not, because there's a ton that goes into it. So what happens is people are chasing the money. So they're, sorry about that. It's probably my wife asking me what I want for dinner.
That's okay. Or it's business, right?
It could be that too. It could be my next
it's
contract.
Yeah, exactly.
So you get these people that are chasing the money. They go to a seller, and the sellers a lot of them are vulnerable because they trust people. So they're getting talked by these wholesalers thinking they're going to buy their house. So now they're selling stuff. They're packing up. I bought a house from someone where the wholesaler fell through. They had lost $1,500 in a security deposit because they expected to sell their house and they were going to go rent. Well, the sale fell apart. They didn't go rent, so they lost the security deposit. So when I built the business, it was built on, hey, I'm going to do it with integrity. So when I was making my first offers, if I didn't have the money to close on the house, I told them what my options were. I'm like, look, I can't pay that, but I know other people that can pay it because they do the work on their own, whatever. Let me show them. I'll get you the price you want, and I'll throw on a little bit so I can get paid. And a lot of people are like, no, that's not the route I want to go. But I found plenty of people that were like, yeah, that's cool, as long as I get what I want. Sure. So I built it with integrity, both on dealing with sellers and dealing with buyers. I don't lie to buyers. We have a lot of repeat buyers, and it's because we go out of our way to make sure they're getting a good product. Yeah. The other big thing for wholesalers is persistence. A lot of them just give up too early. You've probably seen that cartoon where the guy is digging for gold, and they show that he's like 3 feet from the gold. Right. That's where a lot of wholesalers, and I was there. I mean, I can remember in March of my first year having a come to Jesus moment where I'm in my office, and I can remember it vividly. I'm like, look, this is not easy. I was good at insurance. I could go out and work part-time and make really good money. I'm like, help me out here. And I had to make that decision to persist through that discomfort and that learning curve, because there's a massive learning curve. Right. So just persist through it and network and learn and get a little bit better every day.
Yeah, I think what most people don't understand is that if a wholesaler is doing what he's supposed to be doing, he's actually getting deals under contract that nobody else could get under contract, because they're actually going out and finding them and digging and finding deals. So it's not like, I think sometimes people think of the difference between, they could just list it on the MLS, which basically, if the seller were to actually list houses on the MLS, typically they end up walking away with the same amount of money that a wholesaler ends up offering them.
90 days later, too.
Yeah, and it takes longer. But not only that, they're going out and finding, a wholesaler's job is to basically go out and find deals for other people that want to close on the deal and want to hold the deal, or a fix and flip, or whatever or want to live in it potentially. So that's the value that the wholesaler creates, is the fact that they can sell, they can solve somebody's problem on one side, and then they can go find somebody else and actually provide that product at the price that they're looking to purchase the property for. So there's a lot of value in wholesaling. It's not just selling somebody else's house like some people want to act like it is. It's a lot of hard work. It is a full-time job. It's a full-time. This is not a get rich quick scheme.
Hey guys, we're going to take a quick break from the podcast and say a huge thank you to our sponsor, Jerry Padilla, a senior loan originator with Prime Lending. And whether you're a first-time homebuyer or you're well-versed in the process, buying or refinancing a home can be an exciting and rewarding experience with Prime Lending. Serving you in every state, they take the time to listen, and they'll work with you to find a home loan that fits your needs. With the mortgage refinancing, lower your interest rate, lower your monthly payments, shorten your term, or get the cash for whatever you need. Prime Lending also has several options for renovation loans so that you can find what works best for you in your home project. Make sure to contact our good friend and Good Success Mastermind member, Jerry Padilla, who is a senior loan originator with Prime Lending and has over 11 years of experience in the mortgage industry. You can learn more about Prime Lending and what they have to offer by contacting Jerry Padilla at goodsuccess.com/Prime Lending. So make sure you take advantage of that to learn more about them. Now, without further ado, let's get back to the show.
The gurus make it sound so easy because it sells their programs, but at the end of the day, I think wholesaling is probably one of the hardest real estate investing options out there, because you got to be good at sales because you're solving people's problems. So you got to figure out, what's their main pain point and how can I solve it. Most of the people that are going to use your service probably have junk on title, so you got to figure out how to clean up their title, and then you got to know rehabbing. I mean, that's the biggest thing with wholesalers is I get stuff all the time, and it's a 2,500 square foot house, and they're like, it needs paint and carpet, and it's $3,000, and you can sell it for twice as much. I'm like, you can barely change a door for $3,000 nowadays. Right. So you got to have a good idea on how to rehab, and you got to be able to put that all together. You got to know how your buyers are making buying decisions. Are they flipping it, keeping it as a rental, turnkey? So there's a lot to go into it. It's it's not just find a distressed seller, put the house under contract, find a buyer.
Right. So when it comes down to, so let's say you're wholesaling to Olsen Group, what do you present to them so you just talked about you need to know the end buyers, like what they're going to do with the house in the first place. Are they going to, make it rent ready, turnkey, whatever, fix and flip it. So what are some things that you make sure that you do in order to take care of the person you're selling the home to?
I think a lot of that's based on the market. When I got started and the market was a lot softer, I did a lot more prep work for the buyers. So I did the comps, I did the rehab, I would, hand pick what buyers I thought the house would fit for. Now that the market is very, very tight and there's not a lot of inventory, we don't give nearly as much information, because if I tell you that it's going to be a $20,000 rehab, well, it depends on what you're going to do. You could get it done for 10, you could get it done for 50. Depends if you're going to keep it as a flip or a rental. So we buy it at a price that's going to appeal to a lot of people. We send it out there at a price. In the past, I used to send it out at, say, $50,000. First person that gives me $50,000 would take it. But I had to change that because when Tom is beating me down on prices and then all of a sudden he's taking the house sight unseen at the price I put it out at, I knew I was leaving money on the table. Sure. So what we do now is we send it out at a price that is fair to most people that would buy it at. We give everybody two days to take a look at it, and then we'll review offers after 2 days. And that's been able to get the price up there a little bit higher for us, which, not that we're greedy and we want to make, we do want to make more money, but with all the competition, the cost of deals is skyrocketed.
And the lack of inventory.
Yeah.
So, interesting stuff.
We went from getting pay-per-click leads for $40 a lead, and it's $200 now. So
wow, really?
Direct mail, I used to send out about 1,000 to get one. Now we're at 3,000 pieces of mail to get a deal.
That's crazy.
Everyone's doing it.
Jeez. Yeah, inventory sounds like it's tight now. So let's talk about acquisitions then. So you have Region Home Buyers, which is your acquisitions brand, with Justin, and like I said, you guys are well established. I see your guys' ads everywhere that I look. I've seen the billboards, I've seen them in restaurants on the little menu things, and just all kinds of stuff.
Well, kind of the genesis of that is when I got started, I'm a little nobody, and I'm competing against a company that did 300 deals in a year.
Sure.
who had a lot more resources. So I had a long-term picture where it's like the only way I can ever, not to get ahead. I mean, yeah, in the back of mind, I wanted to crush that company because I'm competitive.
Right.
But I'm like, I have to brand myself. There's a guy that sells Medicare supplements in this area, and he's on everything. He's on billboards. He's on cups, mugs, placemats. So I'm like, I got to be that guy for wholesaling.
Right.
So that's what we did. And it probably took a good 18 to 24 months to really gain traction. But we hear it from people all the time. We see you on Facebook. We see your cards. We see, so it works. It took time. It takes a lot of money to brand like that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. So what are some things that you have learned in the acquisition space? Obviously, we've talked about the lack of inventory and having to tighten that up a little bit. But for acquisitions, maybe not your secret sauce, but what are some things that you found that works well for you? You've even mentioned direct mail and pay-per-click ads and stuff like that, but maybe some other things that you could share with us.
Yeah, so I'll touch on marketing real quick. We probably have 4 active channels for marketing. The big thing there, without getting into specifics, because we could literally have a podcast just on marketing,
Sure.
Is consistency. 1 quarter pay-per-click may be the thing that's always working, and direct mail may bomb. But then the next quarter, it's the opposite. So you can't turn one off and then turn it on and off and on and off. You just got to do it all the time.
Keep it rolling. Mm-hmm.
We're different from most wholesalers in that we close on all of our houses. So by the time you guys see one of our houses that's for sale, we already own it.
Sure.
And I do that for a couple of reasons. I've had houses that I had sold to end buyers, but then they fell apart because the seller backed out or title issues, and then that buyer is left hanging. Mm-hmm. So by closing on it first, I have more control. Once we close on it, we also have multiple exit strategies.
Right.
So we flip. We do major flips like you guys do. We do light cosmetic flips. We're up to 23 rentals that we've kept this year. Probably half of our inventory we sell. So I'd love to sell everything because that's the easier route than dealing with rehabs. But having multiple exit strategies always helps.
So when did you decide to do that? Were you always like owning the wholesale deals like this, or were you in that stage where you put it under contract and then?
So when I got started, I had someone that had a little bit of money. So that's when my offers were so stupid low and I presented at the Shark Tank at the other networking real estate group back in January of 16, where I had a deal. House was $150,000 house I had for $40,000. So when it's that low, it's easy to find money to close on.
Sure.
If I couldn't get it at a price where I could find money to close on, that's where I would explain to them the wholesaling option. Mm-hmm. As I got more successful, it was a lot easier to find private money. So, you start with your people closest. My parents lent on some, and I gave them, initially because you got to build the trust, they're scared of losing money. I paid a lot for my private money. The first deal, first 3 loans I did were with Justin. And he hit me for 50% of profit, which was painful at the time because those 3 deals we split $120,000. But if I didn't have that money, I'm splitting 0 or I'm keeping 100% of 0 because those are 3 deals where I needed money. As I got better, I was able to get more money. Now we have money and we get it a lot cheaper because I don't need it as bad as I need it. But I just listen to people. I heard a guy talking at church complaining about the stocks. Pulled him aside and I'm like, hey, you want to grab coffee? I'll talk to you about what I do. I got money from him and I got money from his parents. And I've never met his parents. They live in another state.
Yeah. But
they just funded the portfolio of 7 properties we just bought.
Yeah, I believe every wholesaler ought to be their goal. I mean, there's not a single house that we ever put under contract that we don't intend on closing on, period. Like, and you know that. I mean, that's how I personally would always want to be. Is I'm like, every single house that we put under contract, we're going to close on. Occasionally, if it's a very trusted out-of-state buyer, we may push it out to somebody before we close. Mm-hmm. But normally, it's within a couple of days of the time we close. But for the most part, even most of our deals are the same way. We don't really send them out until we close on the deal. So it's kind of a wholesale, but it's kind of really not. It's really a buy and sell proposition. So.
Interesting stuff. Well, that's good. Thank you for sharing.
But I think if you're out there and you're thinking about wholesaling, I think that's what your mindset. Your mindset ought to be: how can I get to that point as fast as possible? And I think it'll help you be a better wholesaler too, because you'll get stuck with a couple and you'll be like, I'm not making that mistake again.
We've learned from several.
So you're thinking, so you guys are thinking there's not really anything wrong with just putting a house under contract and wholesaling it that way, but the better way is to get to it.
States that will dictate different laws and different ways that it can be construed as potentially not being kosher. But I think there are ways to do it properly in most states.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you found that you've talked, like you've skimmed over networking a little bit here and there and throughout the questions here. So is networking one of your biggest resources of acquiring houses to wholesale?
It is now. I would say probably 20% of the houses we'll buy this year will come from networking and referrals. I started it, and it was a painful process to start, but I did the whole Better Business Bureau thing. Mm-hmm. So your first year, you have a horrible rating because you have no history, no track record. But we have so many reviews on it now. I mean, I think we're actually 5 stars. So if people get mail from us or are Googling it and they go do the research, they see good reviews on Facebook, good reviews on Google, good reviews on Better Business Bureau. So it gives us credibility. I got a call yesterday from a lady. She looked at one of our flips last year, and she's dealing with a trust sale, and the house needs a ton of work. And she called me. She's like, look, I know you guys do good work. You flip houses. I'm part of, she hasn't come to the group yet, but she's on the Facebook page. She sees what she does. She's like, we need a quick sale, and let's chat. So, we get attorneys that get probates that call us all the time. Sure. So part of that's the branding that we did in the community. Part of that's being honest and treating people the way they should be treated. But I mean, it's just the more you're out there and growing your network, the more things will happen over time. Sure. The big thing with wholesaling to do well at it is it's not an overnight thing. I mean, it takes days and days and weeks and years of building your brand and educating yourself and getting out there and meeting people and getting your name out there.
Mm-hmm. So many people want to do the 1 or 2 deals, the wholesale deals, because they see you even talked about it, the gurus that make it look easy, and then it's like, oh, I can make $30,000 on one deal. Well, you can, but eventually you got to work towards that.
If you look at the bottom line, most people would be blown away and would love to get that check at the end of the year. What they don't see is the hours and hours and hours that go into it. I mean, I left the office last night at 2, and I was back at 7:30. Now, that's not a normal day, but my assistant's out all week with pneumonia. We bought those 7 properties. We had the group. I mean, there's so much going on this week. I had to get it done. As a business owner, that's a sacrifice that I'm willing to make. Yeah. Most people, if they can't get a deal in their first couple of weeks, they're moving on to chase the next pot of gold.
Mm-hmm. Well, you specifically talked about with marketing, be consistent, but I mean, it's everything business related too. So, yeah, absolutely. All right, very cool. So let's talk about your thoughts on the current and maybe even the future state of the real estate market. You could keep it localized to your market specifically, because I believe you don't really go outside of Northwest Indiana. So what are your thoughts on the current state of the market and then maybe where it's going in the next couple of years?
Let me look into my fortune ball here.
Right, this is a hot topic. So,
well, I mean, I'm in a mastermind, and it's nice because it has people from all over the country. And there has been a lot of talk at the last 2 events, people on the coast and in the higher price points. Days on market is a lot longer. They're starting to do a lot of price drops. So there is writing on the wall that we are getting to a peak time, and things may settle down a little bit. Locally, I haven't noticed it yet. I mean, we're still putting flips out that are selling super, super fast. We're in a unique area, being right on the border of Illinois. We got cheap taxes. We're landlord friendly. Illinois is jacked up, as everyone sees in the news. So I mean, I can't think, if I look back at all the flips I've done this year, I don't sell a lot to people that are in Indiana, staying in Indiana. And most of my flips are going to Illinois buyers. So as long as Illinois is jacked up, I think we're gonna have a pretty good market.
These people are Illinoised.
There you go.
Right there.
I mean, when you're paying $6,000 in taxes on a house in Indiana that would be $1,500, I mean, that's a huge difference.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about something that I believe that we're going to be having them talk about at the Community Go-Giver event, if I'm not mistaken, but the acquiring private lending. So we've obviously, I mean, we've mentioned it. We talked a lot about networking so far. and you skimmed over it and mentioned that that's one of the keys to acquiring private lending. So let's kind of like dig deep into this topic, and because I mean, we hear it all the time. People that are on the podcast talk about how there's more money than there is deals and all this stuff, but sometimes, you know, you can't find the money, or people are just getting into it, and you even mentioned for you. So what are some tips that you can give for acquiring private lending that you can give somebody that's listening right now?
You got to ask for it. I mean, a lot of people expect, hey, Tom, you're in real estate, you need my private money, and think that they're going to approach you to give it to you. People stay pretty quiet about that. For someone getting started that needs private money, probably the easiest way to get it, if it's not from a direct family member that trusts them, is to have a really sweet deal and present it at a networking event like the one that we do every month, and partner up JV on something like that. I mean, again, the first 3 deals that I did with a private lender were 50-50 splits. So I was able to build my nest egg by doing that. As you get more experienced and you need it less, just always be listening to people. You know, hear them talk about their fear with the stocks going up and down and how they don't control it. And I mean, the nice thing with private lending and real estate is it's not a guarantee, because in any investment there's always risk, but it's, in my opinion, it's a lot safer than stocks, because, you know, the loan I have that I got on the portfolio that I just bought, the guy lent $200,000 on a portfolio worth $350. So worst case scenario, if I have to sell everything, he's going to get his money back out. He knows every quarter I'm paying him 8% annualized on his return. So he doesn't have to worry about with stocks if it's going to get 10% one quarter, lose money in the next quarter. It's, you know, just gives people that peace of mind that they're going to get what they expect to get.
Sure. Have you found yourself having to like prove yourself to people in order to acquire the private lending? I mean, obviously you got to have a pretty good relationship. You said ask is the first step, obviously. But building the relationship, is that important when it comes to acquiring private lending and keeping private lenders?
It is. So again, like when I got started, and a lot of my lenders were, you know, my parents, best man at my wedding, another investor in the area that knew us. Yeah. As we grew, especially with the networking group, we got private money this summer from a lady who, because of the inventory, hadn't been able to find a deal. And she's like, I got this $90,000 just sitting around. I need to do something with it. I'm like, give it to me for 90 days. I'll give you, I think I gave her 8.5% annualized return. Because I want to say with that money, she was getting that on like a line of credit or home ex. So she was paying juice on that just to sit in her bank. Sure. So she actually made money on that. We don't go out and advertise for money, but we have a lot of people that, because we talk about using private money, that come up and ask us all the time. And now it's a lot of investors because they can't find anything.
Sure.
So we do a lot of lending too with our IRA. So, and we get a lot of money from IRAs because, you know, with my IRA, it's hard for me to do my own flips and stuff with it. Right. So it's a lot easier for me to lend it to someone else and vice versa.
Gotcha. What are your thoughts?
Well, I always say the best way to get private money is to pay people back. So when you pay people back, they want to loan to you again, and then they want to tell their friends and their family and their nieces and uncles and aunts and sisters and brothers, and then that's one piece of it. I think the other piece of it is it has to be a good deal for both people, and I think you have to protect your lender. Make sure that the lender knows that you're protecting them. They have proper insurance. They have that you have good title. Like, go over and beyond to kind of explain that to them when you're first getting started, because that's a big deal for people that don't know anything about it. And you tell them, hey, you're going to get an insurance. I'm going to get an insurance policy. I'm going to name you as additional insured. It makes you just more credible in their eyes. So, like I said, I think the number one way to raise private money is to pay people back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a big thing too is communication. Justin was big on this when we first started getting private money. To always communicate with them, because our private money that we were getting initially was for the properties that we were fixing and flipping. He's like, you got to send them pictures, you got to give them updates. And at first I'm like, why do they care? As long as they're getting paid every month on their interest, who cares about that? But I loaned money to a guy last January, and I didn't have updates for months. And I'm like, what's happening? Fortunately, I knew who his agent was, so I could talk to him about the status of it. But being in the lender's shoes, not having any updates, that's where I'm starting to get worried. So now we have a process where when we're doing private money on a fix and flip, here's what it looks like. Here's our plan. We do the additional insured. We give them copies of all the closing documents right away. It'll take probably 30 days for them to get their original mortgage back. And then we give them bi-weekly updates. Here's what we did this week, just so they can kind of see progress. Hey, the property's listed. We send them the listing so they can see it done. We let them know when we have it under contract. Right. So we don't tell them every single detail with like the inspection, repairs, and stuff like that, but just communicate and keep them in the loop.
Yeah. That's one thing that you say often is
like
put yourself in the lender's shoes.
Well, not only that, I actually also believe that if you want to go a step farther, so like I said, the very first thing is pay people back. We have way more money than we can possibly deploy right now unless we get some massive projects that people want to give us, and it's because we've just paid everybody back that's ever loaned me any money. But I think the other thing is the lack of belief. Like, I think a lot of times wholesalers go into this thinking they're begging for money. They feel like, how am I? They're nervous about it. To me, like, I am the exact opposite. To me, it's such an opportunity that I feel like I'm giving them like the biggest gift they could possibly give them. And the only reason why I came to that realization is because I became a lender myself. So like that's my other. I always talk about that. Like, pay people back. Let them know that you're protecting them. But I think if you really want to get over that fear, you have to be a lender yourself and see how much of a great opportunity it actually is. Because really, you're selling. It's sales, and a sale is just a transfer of belief. And once you believe in something so strongly that it becomes very easy, and that actually is probably more seen and more noticed by the other party than anything else. Is that it's not cockiness, it's just confidence that this is such a great deal, that this is something that I stand by 100% firmly, and I know you're going to get paid back, and I know it's going to be a good deal for you.
And have a big picture mindset too. I mean, I don't know the statistics you guys may, but businesses spend billions of dollars to generate leads. But once they capture that client, that second sale to the client costs a fraction. It's so much easier.
Right.
So it's the same way with cash buyers. For that cash buyer, we just got one yesterday. You looked at our houses many times, finally pulled the trigger yesterday. I mean, there's probably a lot of hesitation. They don't want to make a bad decision. But now that they've pulled that trigger, we'll have a super smooth closing process because we have a nice process in place. For them to make that decision to buy the second property from us, so much easier. Yeah. It's the same with lenders. For someone to wire that money that first time, to trust you enough to give you $150,000, there's a lot of fear and hesitation there. But once that project goes well, they get the money back that second time, is easy. So you can spend, if you don't treat people appropriately and honestly and with integrity, you're going to spend your entire time generating new clients all the time. So, and that's a huge time suck. It's a huge energy suck. It costs a ton of money. So once you get those clients, whether it's, your turnkey buyers, your cash buyers, your private lenders, I mean, we cater to them. We just did a big event for cash buyers. I mean, we spent $1,500 bringing them to Buffalo Wild Wings, paid for all their drinks, as many wings as they wanted. And that's our way of thanking them for buying all the houses they bought from us this year. And they feel special.
Awesome. Well, that's pretty cool. And that sounds like a total mindset shift too, because like you got to you said you put yourself in the private lender's shoes, but you really just got to think about the other person, the other side of it. And it sounds like if you have the mindset of being scared to the first step is ask, then that's kind of a selfish mindset, because like you said, you're providing an opportunity for them. They want to deploy their money, right? So
they have a problem. They really do. Yeah. People. And actually, the problem is getting worse and worse. There's so much money in cash sitting in accounts all over the world. And I mean, I was just at an event last week where the minimum, I shouldn't say the minimum, but a single family office is basically an office in which extremely wealthy individuals worth $100 million or more, hire these companies to be able to go and deploy their money. They have extreme problems, seriously. And I know we don't think it's a problem, because we don't have $100 million, but to them, it's a real problem. Like they have a real problem that they don't know where they're going to be able to put their money, and in order to be able to keep it safe and collect a return. Right. And then we even have, if you think of Asia, for instance, China, like their biggest issue isn't even can I get my money and deploy it and get a return. They just want to make sure it stays safe. So like it is a real problem, and I think that being in real estate is a place where we can we can really take advantage of that from a good way, not like take advantage of people, but take advantage of that problem that people have and help them solve that problem.
Right, help them solve the problem. Very cool. All right, so we are going to have to wrap this up. It's been an awesome interview. Appreciate you sharing everything that you have so far. So 2 questions that we ask every single person that we get on the interviews here. Always very interested, and I know when we had Justin on, he had a very good answer for these next couple questions. So good success to us. You know us very well. You know Tom very well personally, and you know our group and what we stand for. So good success to us, means a lot. It's just the term itself. So maybe not just the specific people in good success when you think about it, but the term good success. When you hear that term, what comes to mind? What does that mean to you?
I wrote down the quote from Zig Ziglar. You'll always get what you want in life when you help enough people get that. And that's kind of been one of our core values, is provide enough value for people, and success will happen. A lot of people chase the recognition, chase the money, and they never get there because their focus is on themselves. But when I hear good success, it's focusing on other people, helping them get what they want, and then as a result, you'll get what you want.
Awesome. That sounds good. And then you got to leave the audience with one thing. So maybe it's a quote, a piece of advice, a thought. Maybe it's a book that you enjoy reading. One thing you got to leave the audience with. What would that be?
Just finished listening to the audiobook Compound Effect, where it talks about little things done day to day. And he gives the example of drinking a can of soda. One can of soda isn't going to add a whole bunch of weight. But when you drink that can of soda every week over the course of a year, there's so many calories there. So again, that's the big thing when it comes to real estate, is you're not gonna wake up one day and make $600,000 doing one deal. It's a lot of, especially with wholesaling, it's a lot of $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 deals. But if you do enough of them, that compound effect is huge.
Absolutely. One of my personal favorite books, I know it's one of your favorite books, by Darren Hardy. The Darren Dailies are awesome. I don't know if you watch those, but those are pretty cool. So great stuff. Well, we appreciate you sharing that with us, and thank you so much. Contact information, I didn't forget, Tom. So if somebody wants to get in contact with you, maybe they want to learn more about the meetup group that you have, or even sell you a home, that'd be great too. So contact information, websites, emails, phone numbers, whatever.
I have like 6 entities now, so let's go with Adrien, Adrien, at regionhomebuyers.com. That's probably the best email. And then 219-237-9088 is the best number to reach me at.
Awesome. And then for the meetup group, if somebody wants to learn more about that, what's the best website for them to go to?
That website is investnwigroup.com.
Okay, awesome stuff. So you guys make sure you check that out. And if you are in the Northwest Indiana, Chicagoland region, that'd be a great group for you guys to be a part of. Maybe you'll see Tom, Manny, Jared there at some point if you guys come. So make sure you check that out. Adrien, we appreciate you coming in the studio today, and thank you for sharing everything you did. We look forward to having you back soon.
Thank you so much for coming.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. So that's going to do it for today's episode. We appreciate you jumping on and joining in with us. If you haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the Good Success Podcast. We're on all the podcast platforms. Just go search for us. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. If you would, we would love that. We would love to hear your thoughts on the podcast as well. And then the Good Success Mastermind coming up February 4th through 8th. Very, very soon. So make sure you check that out if you're interested in our group. We have a great culture that we've put together. Very excited about the event coming up in Dallas, Texas at Quest Trust Company's office down there. So you can go to goodsuccess.com/mastermind to learn more about that. Fill out the application there. You'll talk to either myself or Tom, and then we'll go from there. And then the Community Go-Giver event, you'll see Adrien there and Justin. You'll see me and Tom and several other people that have been on the podcast here. You guys are going to see a lot more of that. A lot more details to come out soon, but early bird price tickets are going on right now. Save a couple $100. Go to communitygogiver.com to learn more about it and then to purchase your tickets there. So that's going to do it for today's episode. We appreciate you jumping on. And remember to be a conduit, not a bucket.
Work to have to give.
Catch you on the next one.